Hi, this is Kendall Boyson, professional life and recovery coach, and you're listening to Encouragementology, the practice of instilling hope. Hi there. Thanks for joining me. On this show, we are exploring a puzzling problem. Why does communication still fail in a hyper-connected world? Even though the workplace has more modes of communication than ever before, 86% of employees and executives cite the lack of effective collaboration and communication as the main cause of workplace failures. Are we trading convenience for connection and clear communication? If you frequently feel overwhelmed and misunderstood, have you ever stepped back and asked, how much can my brain safely and accurately compute? The average office worker receives about 121 emails per day and sends out 40 work-related emails daily, contributing to communication overload and potential miscommunication. Studies suggest that people misinterpret the tone and intent of emails and text about 50% of the time, leading to misunderstandings and conflict. Over 70% of employees report feeling overwhelmed with the amount of information they receive at work, leading to decreased productivity and communication breakdowns. From its head, I, for one, can get distracted quickly. I envision an octopus with all 8 arms performing tasks at the same time, and in the center of it all, the googly eyes are spinning and steam is coming from its head. Picture it. You're watching a program while reading the subtitles. You get a text, which asks you to jump on social media to check out a post or a video. Someone asks you a question. Your phone rings. It's your mother, and she can't understand her banking app. You open a web browser to see why she's stuck. You know, I literally could go on and on. Does all this convenience and distracting multitasking come at a cost? Would you be able to go old school? A study published by the Journal of the American Medical Association shows that frequent digital media use involving social media, gaming, texting, and streaming movies, music, or TV increases one's risk of developing ADHD symptoms by nearly 10%. Put a pin in that and we'll come back to it. Over at Preply, Matt Zajechowski shines a light on a study showing Americans are becoming less effective communicators. Many of our problems at work and in relationships stem back to communication issues. These issues run the gamut. Certain topics might be difficult to discuss, or we might not be the most skilled in effective communication across diverse cultures. One thing is clear: Americans struggle to communicate well. We surveyed over 2,200 Americans on their worst communication habits, from constant interrupting to scrolling on our phones when we should be listening. Being interrupted is America's biggest communication problem. Americans have a problem with interrupting and talking over each other. This is shown in what respondents ranked as the most frequent communication problems they experience, which are being interrupted, 24%, being talked over, 19%, and having to repeat themselves, 18%. Other issues that drive Americans nuts when speaking to each other include when the other person is distracted during the conversation, either by their phone, 14%, or via multitasking, 12%. While the majority of Americans who responded in 26 states experience being interrupted most frequently, it's particularly concentrated in the southern part of the United States, including states like North Carolina and Alabama. Related to being interrupted, the problems of being talked over and having to repeat yourself are also prevalent. Being talked over is the biggest issue in Arizona, Florida, Illinois, Mississippi, and South Carolina, whereas residents in the Midwestern states of Indiana, Ohio, and Wisconsin are constantly having to repeat themselves. Other communication pet peeves ranked by the most to the least annoying are when the person you're talking to lacks empathy, is passive-aggressive, assumes what you mean instead of asking, talks about themselves constantly, is overly emotional, and uses you instead of I statements. We asked respondents to rank how effective their communication skills are on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the most effective, and broke down the results by region, gender, and generation. The states that rank themselves highest when it comes to communication are Louisiana and Missouri. Following them are New Hampshire, Michigan, Arkansas, and Mississippi. The worst ranked states for communication are Nevada, Massachusetts, Virginia, Indiana, and Maryland. Notably, respondents' self-confidence in their communication skills dropped with each generation. Baby boomers scored themselves the highest, followed by Gen X and millennials, with Gen Z ranking themselves the worst communicators. Women showed more confidence in their skills compared to men and non-binary people. Communication itself is difficult, but often we have the most trouble with the topics themselves. We asked our respondents which topics they have the most difficulty discussing, from mental health to problems at work. The top 5 most difficult topics for Americans to discuss are relationship problems, mental health, money, family problems, and friendship problems. Other difficult topics that did not rank as high include physical health, politics, social issues, and work. We discovered some interesting regional patterns after looking at which topics are the most difficult for each state to discuss. For example, many Western states like California, Oregon, and Washington rank their mental health as the most difficult topic to talk to their loved ones about. For many states in the Northeast, like New York, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut, discussing relationship problems is the most difficult. Speaking of relationship problems, we also explored the ways that communication issues can cause rifts among the people closest to you. Communication problems like defensiveness, 90%, criticism, 85%, lack of compromise, 80%, stonewalling, 74%, and belittling, 63%, are common in the majority of American relationships. And for many, lack of communication skills is a deal breaker. 60% of Americans would end a relationship with someone over their bad communication. Interestingly, 80% of Americans also indicated that they are conflict avoidant. You might be wondering who are the worst communicators in Americans' lives. According to our results, the worst offenders include partners, 18%, and parents, with 17% indicating their mother and 16% voting for their father. 40% of Americans have experienced a cultural miscommunication at work. We asked our respondents to rank the most common workplace miscommunication issues, and the most experienced were lack of feedback, 69%, poorly written communication, 64%, and too much feedback or micromanaging, 60%. So I asked you in the beginning, would you be able to go old school? Old school means something close to old-fashioned, but it's a term with more pride behind it. If someone says, I'm old school, they're saying they do it like it used to be done, which they believe was a better way. Let's take the phone, for example. Do you have good phone etiquette? And have you established some phone boundaries? If I think of old school, I think of having one phone at the house. Until the cordless, it was attached to one wall with a very long cord, the longest we could get. Direct calls mean you are standing by the phone to answer it. Other than that, it's like, who do you want to speak to? Kendall? Yeah, hold on. Kendall! The phone's for you! She'll be right here. Since everybody was waiting to use the phone and call waiting wasn't a thing, your phone time was limited, and there definitely wasn't texting. So communicating with a new love interest, live, over the phone, with real talking, you can imagine it was limited. But what are the pros? Being more strategic in communication. If you wanted to find your friends and you didn't want to sit by the phone all night, you had to be clear in your instructions and abide by a strict timeline, or you could miss out on all the fun. You had to have patience to get a response. But think about this. Without texting every single thought in your head, you get to accumulate every little thing that happens throughout your day for some exciting in-person celebrations. If you're texting someone all day long with everything that you're doing, or you're putting it on social media, when you get together, what do you actually talk about? Do we really need to know that much about each other's day-to-day life? If we want to go old school, let's think about dating or courting back in the day, before all of these communication devices. You doing a background check or trolling social media to find out what this person's all about was not a thing. So you had to ask a friend or a family member what they thought about this person. You also didn't get to see all their past relationships or what they were posting or their political alliances or anything. You basically just had to do your own discovery and have it unfold as you got to know the person. Doesn't that seem so foreign today? So you tell me, which is better? Have you ever said, "I'm so glad we didn't have social media when I was young"? What you were probably referring to is the anonymity you enjoyed while you were running amok. But let's dig into that concept a little more. At Recruiter.com, I found more information on the negative impact that growing up digital has had on communication. Millennials have a stronger connection with technology than any previous generation. It makes sense that they would. They grew up alongside the internet and smartphones. Experts in all things digital, millennials have certain advantages when adopting and deploying the latest workplace technologies to drive results. However, the millennial affinity for technology may also be the source of what many deem to be this generation's greatest weakness: poor communication skills. Many older professionals who work with millennials note that the members of this generation seem to be lacking when it comes to face-to-face interaction, making eye contact, and communicating tactfully. While the effects of technology on communication skills may be most evident in millennials who grew up with tech, other generations are not immune. Even those who did not grow up digitally have started to see their communication skills slip as technology becomes more pervasive in every aspect of our lives. Here's what you need to know about the negative impact the digital world can have on your communication. Your ability to make eye contact suffers. A little more than half of millennials report experiencing anxiety if they don't have their phones on them, and people across generations check their phones 80 times a day on average. Part of why we're so anchored to our phones is that receiving emails and social media notifications releases dopamine, a neurotransmitter that makes us feel good in our brains. Given this sort of phone addiction, it's not surprising that many millennials and others struggle to make and sustain eye contact. The discomfort one experiences when separated from their device is real. Making eye contact helps establish connections and trust with other people. If you struggle with eye contact, it could have a devastating impact on your professional life. Try going to dinner with a friend and keeping your phone off the table. Challenge yourself to make it through a meal without checking your phone even once. You're shying away from face-to-face conversations. A recent study found that requests delivered in person are 34 times more likely to result in positive outcomes than requests sent via email. Keep your digital device off the table to make meetings as successful as possible. It may be hard to imagine going to a meeting without having your device handy. Still, unless you expect important information that will impact the outcome of your meeting, there's no need to check your phone or tablet until the meeting is over. Checking your device not only takes your focus away from the topic at hand, but it also sends a message to other people in the room that they're not worthy of your full attention. Checking your digital device during a meeting can negate all the positive effects of having a face-to-face meeting in the first place. You're less comfortable with non-digital conversations. When most of your communications are virtual, two things happen. You get used to being in a constant state of control and lose your ability to be vulnerable. You can edit and tweak your message with texting and email until you're ready to hit send. This communication pattern makes it hard to let your guard down during a conversation. Vulnerability starts to feel foreign and even scary. You might not think vulnerability matters in the workplace, but it can help you become a better leader. You're shielding yourself from both conflict and conflict resolution. Millennials avoid phone calls. Why? Because they're less likely to run into conflict if they use texting and email instead. While undesirable, this aversion to conflict may also harm conflict resolution skills in younger generations. When conflicts inevitably arise, and they will, younger workers may be unable to handle them effectively. That could be disastrous in a professional environment. Undoubtedly, technology is driving change in our personal and professional lives, and much of the change is positive. However, we can see some pitfalls to growing up digitally. By making yourself aware of the drawbacks, you put yourself in the best position to overcome them. Feeling consumed by the digital world? It may be time to take a much-needed break. Try a digital detox and reap the benefits. In an era defined by digital advancement, it's essential to remember the importance of balance. We're not advocating for completely rejecting technology, but rather a conscious effort to ensure that interpersonal skills don't become a lost art. Digital communication should enhance our lives, not define them. So here are some ways you can achieve a healthy balance. Set digital boundaries. Given our constant connectedness, setting boundaries for technology use is important. Consider implementing tech-free hours in your day where you step away from the screens and engage in non-digital activities. This not only gives your eyes a break, but also helps cultivate in-person communication skills. You might be surprised at the depth of conversation that can occur without the interruption of buzzing smartphones. Embrace in-person networking. While LinkedIn and other digital platforms can be great for building professional connections, they're not the only way to network. Attending industry conferences, meetups, or even casual networking events can be a great way to practice and improve your face-to-face communication skills. Practice active listening. Active listening is a critical skill often diminished by frequent digital communication. When conversing, make a conscious effort to listen attentively, show empathy, and respond appropriately. This can improve your interpersonal skills and make the other person feel heard and valued. Impacts on emotional intelligence. Being constantly connected can also impact emotional intelligence, a critical component of effective communication. Limited emotional understanding. Emojis and exclamation marks can only convey so much. When we rely on digital communication, we miss out on nonverbal cues like tone, facial expressions, and body language, which are vital in understanding others' emotions fully. If we're not regularly engaging in face-to-face interactions, we could lose touch with these important emotional indicators. Misinterpretation and miscommunication. Without the nuance of face-to-face interaction, digital communication can often lead to misinterpretation. Sarcasm and humor, for instance, can easily be misconstrued in a text or an email, causing unnecessary confusion or conflict. Awareness of this potential pitfall can encourage us to seek in-person conversation for complex or sensitive matters. The role of technology in enhancing communication. While the conversation often revolves around the adverse effects of technology on communication, it's important to note that it can also be used to enhance our communication skills if used mindfully. Like using platforms like Slack, Microsoft Teams, Zoom have transformed workplace collaboration, enabling real-time communication across geographical boundaries. These tools can supplement in-person interactions and keep teams connected, especially in remote work environments. There are countless online courses, webinars, and resources to improve communication skills. Leveraging these tools can be a great way to counterbalance the negative impact of technology on interpersonal communication. Have you ever heard of the snowball effect? The term refers to how small issues can escalate and accumulate, leading to larger problems and potentially significant consequences. With that in mind, let's start a lack of communication or miscommunication snowball down the hill. Here's how it typically unfolds. Initially, there might be a small misunderstanding or misinterpretation of a message which is not addressed or clarified. Without clarification, people may start making assumptions or errors based on the initial misunderstanding, leading to further confusion. As misunderstandings grow, opportunities for collaboration, innovation, or problem solving may be missed, affecting productivity and efficiency. Unresolved misunderstandings can lead to conflicts as people become frustrated or feel ignored, further hindering effective communication. Persistent communication breakdowns can erode trust and breed resentment among team members, damaging relationships and morale. Ultimately, the snowball effect can impact overall performance, leading to decreased productivity, lower quality of work, and potentially even business loss. Ouch. Now roll one down in your personal life. When in doubt, pick up the phone. Or better yet, let someone see your face. Notice your body language and gauge your intent. Be clear, honest, and concise. Remember when I said we would revisit it? The rise in adult ADHD. Individuals with ADHD often experience a myriad of challenges, including difficulty concentrating, staying organized, managing time, which can have a drastic impact on daily functioning and lead to long-term problems, such as academic failure or difficulties in interpersonal relationships. That comes from Dr. Harold Hong. It's estimated that 10.5 million American adults are living with ADHD. A study published in JAMA reported that the diagnosis of ADHD in adults is now 4 times that of children, and its prevalence more than doubled between 2007 and 2016, from 43% to 96%. There is some debate among experts about the relationship between technology, multitasking, and the rise in ADHD diagnosis in adults. While it's clear that technology and multitasking can affect attention and concentration, their role in the development or exacerbation of ADHD is not yet fully understood. But here are a few ways in which technology and multitasking might contribute to ADHD-like symptoms or difficult with attention. Technology provides constant stimulation and information, which can make it challenging for individuals to focus on one task for an extended period of time. This constant switching of attention may mimic symptoms of ADHD. The proliferation of smartphones, social media, and other digital distractions can make it difficult for individuals to sustain attention on important tasks, leading to decreased productivity and increased frustration. Some research suggests that frequent use of technology and multitasking can lead to reduced attention spans over time, although it's unclear if this is directly contributing to ADHD. There is evidence to suggest that excessive screen time and multitasking can affect brain development, particularly in areas related to attention and executive function, but more research is needed in the area. Whether you believe there's a direct correlation or not, I think we can all agree it isn't helping. In the words of Prince, the internet is cool. It's okay to get on the internet, but don't let the internet get on you. It's okay to use the internet, but don't let the internet use you. We've all seen The Matrix. There's a war going on, and the battlefield is in the mind, and the prize is the soul. So be careful. At helpguide.org, I found some effective communication tools, how to improve your interpersonal skills. Effective communication is about more than just exchanging information. It's about understanding the emotion and intentions behind the information, as well as being able to clearly convey a message. You need to also listen in a way that gains the full meaning of what's being said and makes the other person feel heard and understood. Effective communication sounds like it should be instinctive, but all too often when we try to communicate with others, something goes astray. We say one thing, the other person hears something else, and misunderstandings, frustrations, and conflicts ensue. This can cause problems in your home, school, and work relationships. But by learning effective communication skills, you can deepen your connections to others, build greater trust and respect, and improve teamwork, problem solving, and your overall social and emotional health. Whether you're trying to improve communication with your romantic partner, kids, boss, or coworkers, learning these communication skills can help strengthen your interpersonal relationships. Are you ready? Tip number 1. Understand what's stopping you from communicating well. Common barriers to effective communication can include stress and out of control emotions. When you're stressed or emotionally overwhelmed, you're more likely to misread other people, send confusing or off-putting nonverbal skills, and lapse into unhealthy, knee-jerk patterns of behavior. To avoid conflict and misunderstandings, you can learn how to quickly calm down before continuing a conversation. Lack of focus. You can't communicate effectively when you're multitasking. If you're checking your phone, planning what you're going to say next, or daydreaming, you're almost certain to miss nonverbal cues in the conversation. To communicate effectively, you need to avoid distractions and stay focused. Inconsistent body language. Nonverbal communication should reinforce what's being said, not contradict it. If you say one thing, but your body language says something else, your listener will likely feel that you're being dishonest. For example, you can't say yes while shaking your head no. Negative body language. If you disagree with or dislike what's being said, you might use negative body language to rebuff the other person's message, like crossing your arms or avoiding eye contact or tapping your foot. You don't have to agree with or even like what's being said, but to communicate effectively and not put the other person on the defense, it's important to avoid sending negative signals. Tip number 2, become an engaged listener. When communicating with others, we often focus on what we should say. However, effective communication is less about talking and more about listening. Listening well means not just understanding the words or the information being communicated, but also understanding the emotions the speaker is trying to convey. There's a big difference between engaged listening and simply hearing. When you really listen, when you're engaged with what's being said, you'll hear the subtle intonations in someone's voice that tell you how the person is feeling and the emotions they're trying to communicate. When you're an engaged listener, not only will you better understand the other person, you'll also make that person feel heard and understood, which can help build a stronger, deeper connection between you. By communicating in this way, you'll also experience a process that lowers stress and supports physical and emotional well-being. If the person you're talking to is calm, for example, listening in an engaged way will help to calm you too. If the person is agitated, you can help them calm down by listening in an attentive way and making the person feel understood. If your goal is to fully understand and connect with the other person, listening in an engaged way will often come naturally. The more you practice, the more satisfying and rewarding your interactions with others will become. Here are some tips for becoming an engaged listener. Focus fully on the speaker. You can't listen in an engaged way if you're constantly checking your phone or thinking about something else. You need to stay focused on the moment-to-moment experience in order to pick up the subtle nuances and important nonverbal cues in a conversation. If you find it hard to concentrate on some speakers, try repeating their words over in your head. It'll reinforce their message and help you stay focused. Favor your right ear. As strange as it sounds, the left side of the brain contains the primary processing centers for both speech comprehension and emotions. Since the left side of the brain is connected to the right side of the body, favoring your right ear can help you better detect the emotional nuances of what someone is saying. Avoid interrupting or trying to direct the conversation to your concerns. By saying something like, "If you think that's bad, let me tell you what happened to me." Listening is not the same as waiting for your turn to talk. You can't concentrate on what someone's saying if you're forming what you're going to say next. Often the speaker can read your facial expressions and know that your mind is elsewhere. Show your interest in what's being said. Nod occasionally. Smile at the person, and make sure your posture is open and inviting. Encourage the speaker to continue with small verbal comments like, "Yeah, Try to set aside judgment. In order to communicate effectively with someone, you don't have to like them or agree with their ideas, values, or opinions. However, you do need to set aside your judgment and withhold blame and criticism in order to fully understand them. The most difficult communication, when successfully executed, can often lead to an unlikely connection with someone. Provide feedback. If there seems to be a disconnect, reflect what has been said by paraphrasing. "What I'm hearing is," or "sounds like you're saying," are great ways to reflect back. Don't simply repeat what the speaker has said verbatim, though. You'll sound insincere or unintelligent. Instead, express what the speaker's words mean to you. Ask questions to clarify certain points. "What do you mean when you said?" Or, "Is this what you mean?" Hear the emotion behind the words. It's the higher frequencies of human speech that impart emotion. You can become more attuned to these frequencies and better able to understand what others are really saying by exercising the tiny muscles of your middle ear. This is the smallest in the body. You can do this by singing, playing a wind instrument, or listening to certain types of high-frequency music, like a Mozart symphony or a violin concerto, for example, rather than low-frequency rock, pop, or hip-hop. Tip number 3, pay attention to nonverbal signals. The way you look, listen, move, and react to another person tells them more about how you're feeling than words alone ever can. Nonverbal communication or body language includes facial expressions, body movements and gestures, eye contact, posture, the tone of your voice, and even your muscle tension and breathing. Developing the ability to understand and use nonverbal communication can help you connect with others, express what you really mean, navigate challenging situations, and build better relationships at work and at home. You can enhance effective communication by using open body language. That's arms uncrossed, standing with an open stance, or sitting on the edge of your seat and maintaining eye contact with the person you're talking to. You can also use body language to emphasize or enhance your verbal message. Patting a friend on the back while complimenting them, for example, or pounding your fists to underline your message. Be aware of individual differences. People from different countries and cultures tend to use different nonverbal communication gestures, so it's important to take age, culture, religion, gender, and emotional state into account when reading body language signals. An American teen, a grieving widow, or an Asian businessman, for example, are likely to use nonverbal skills differently. Look at nonverbal communication signals as a group. Don't read too much into a single gesture or nonverbal clue. Consider all of the nonverbal signals you receive, from eye contact to tone of voice to body language. Anyone can slip up occasionally and let eye contact go, for example, or briefly cross their arms without meaning to. Consider the signals as a whole to get a better read on the person. Use nonverbal skills that match up with your words rather than contradict them. If you say one thing, but your body language says something else, your listener will feel confused or suspect that you're being dishonest. For example, sitting with your arms crossed and shaking your head doesn't match words telling the other person that you agree with what they're saying. Tip number 4, keep stress in check. How many times have you felt stressed during a disagreement with your spouse, kids, boss, friends, or coworkers, and then said or done something you regretted? If you can quickly relieve stress and return to a calm state, you'll not only avoid such regrets, but in many cases, you'll also help to calm the other person as well. It's only when you're calm, in a relaxed state, that you'll be able to know whether the situation requires a response, or whether the other person's signals indicate it would be better to remain silent. In situations like a job interview, business presentation, or high-pressure meeting, or an introduction to a loved one's family, for example, it's important to manage your emotions, think on your feet, and effectively communicate under pressure. Use stalling tactics to give yourself time to think. Ask for a question to be repeated or for clarification of a statement before you respond. Pause to collect your thoughts. Silence isn't necessarily a bad thing. Pausing can make you seem more in control than rushing your response. Make one point and provide an example or supporting piece of information. If your response is too long or you waffle about a number of points, you risk losing the listener's interest. Follow one point with an example and engage the listener's reaction to tell if you should make a second point. Deliver your words clearly. In many cases, how you say something can be as important as what you say. Speak clearly. Maintain an even tone and make eye contact. Keep your body language relaxed and open. Wrap up with a summary and then stop. Summarize your response and then stop talking, even if it leaves a silence in the room. You don't have to fill the silence by continuing to talk. When a conversation starts to get heated, you need something quick and immediate to bring down the emotional intensity. By learning to quickly reduce stress in the moment, you can safely take stock of any strong emotions you're experiencing, regulate your feelings, and behave appropriately. Recognize when you're becoming stressed. Your body will let you know if you're stressed as you communicate. Are your muscles or stomach tight? Are your hands clenched? Is your breath shallow? Are you forgetting to breathe? Take a moment to calm down before deciding to continue a conversation or postpone it. The best way to rapidly and reliably relieve stress is through the senses: sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, or movement. For example, you could pop a peppermint in your mouth, squeeze a stress ball in your pocket, take a few deep breaths, clench and relax your muscles, or simply recall a soothing, sensory-rich image. Each person responds differently to sensory input, so you need to find a coping mechanism that is soothing to you. When used appropriately, humor is a great way to relieve stress when communicating. When you or those around you start taking things too seriously, find a way to lighten the mood by sharing a joke or an amusing story. Sometimes, if you can both bend a little, you'll be able to find a happy middle ground that reduces the stress levels for everyone concerned. If you realize that the other person cares much more about the issue than you do, compromise may be easier for you and a good investment for the future of the relationship. Agree to disagree if necessary, and take time away from the situation so everyone can calm down. Go for a stroll outside or spend a few minutes meditating. Physical movement or finding a quiet place to regain your balance can quickly reduce stress. And tip number 5, assert yourself. Direct, assertive expression makes for clear communication and can help boost your self-esteem and decision-making skills. Being assertive means expressing your thoughts, feelings, and needs in an open and honest way while standing up for yourself and respecting others. It does not mean being hostile, aggressive, or demanding. Effective communication is always about understanding the other person, not about winning an argument or forcing your opinions on others. Here are some ways you can improve your assertiveness. Value yourself and your options. They are as important as anyone else's. Know your needs and wants. Learn to express them without infringing on the rights of others. Express negative thoughts in a positive way. It's okay to be angry, but you must remain respectful as well. Receive feedback positively. Accept compliments graciously. Learn from your mistakes. Ask for help when needed. Learn to say no. Know your limits and don't let others take advantage of you. Look for alternatives so everyone feels good about the outcome. Empathetic assertion conveys sensitivity to the other person. First, recognize the other person's situation or feelings, then state your needs or opinion. I know you've been very busy at work, but I want you to make time for us as well. Escalating assertion can be employed when your first attempts are not successful. You become increasingly firm as time progresses, which may include outlining consequences if your needs are not met. For example, if you don't abide by the contract, I'll be forced to pursue legal action. Practice assertiveness in lower risk situations to help build up your confidence. Or ask friends and family if you can practice assertiveness techniques on them first. If you want to share encouragementology with a friend who needs to know they're not alone in this journey of self-discovery, you can visit encouragementology.com or anywhere you stream your content to receive this episode and all others. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram for additional encouragement throughout the week. So I challenge you. Clear communication is crucial for effective collaboration and understanding in both personal and professional settings, fostering stronger relationships and minimizing misunderstandings. Convey your ideas accurately, ensuring everyone is on the same page to drive successful outcomes. I know you can do it. Thank you for listening to Encouragementology with Kendall Boyson, where we find positive ways to handle some of life's challenges.
I stumbled through until the path was clear.